Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my proud privilege to start the club meeting, which is known to many of you because they are the members. We decided a not-for-profit activity that we should have such club meeting. Earlier, we used to have physical meetings. We used to have once in 2 months, and now we alternate months. And now it is online. I hope we resume and meet people as well after COVID wave subsides. We can have some virtual and some of the physical meetings, etc. We have been getting a good response, and other activities of our magazine, which goes now to 95,000 people. We are also would be planning to have a webinar which can be merged with the club. So every month we have something, and the club members should advise whom should we call, or they can call people which is of their common interest. Conference, as Dr. Mukherjee definitely knows, has not been done because of the COVID again, and I don't think this year also we can do. We are looking into the something which I have talked to many people, that yoga and health.
Okay, so my extreme apologies. I think Dr. Singh was probably trying to set the context. Maybe it's the internet issue. But sir, let me say, very quickly, I think we are very grateful to both of you that in spite of going through the COVID, infection yourself, you are here today. And I think there is no doubt that the work DBT has done in past is quite legendary in terms of supporting the community and the ecosystem. And I think, sir, we had a great pleasure having you, Dr. Mukherjee, in during the COVID time after the first wave, where you shared with us, a number of interventions that were happening. And of course, second wave was a disaster for many of us. Many of us lost our, nears and dears ones as well. And I think country has gone through a very tough time, and probably you have known this much better yourself, being going through. So we are grateful to you, sir. And I think, sir, as everyone says that necessity is the mother of invention. And in that regard, sir, the country has experienced in last 1.5 years those tough times which requires India to be self-reliant, India to be innovative. And I think what your department and your initiatives have been doing already much before, I think it requires more of a clarion call today. And I think, sir, it is a great pleasure for us to have you here today. And also the people in our community, they are very motivated. We have some very, very kind and I would say motivated people. Dr. Amit Raj from Rajkot, he also went through, himself serving a lot of people in his hospitals. So we have, very noble community around us who are always looking to give back. And I think that today's agenda about the funding, uh, it would be a great opportunity for us to learn from both of you gentlemen, the kind of your own personal experiences as well as interventions from the government that you are probably aware of are coming. And we expect also a lot of Q&A today, because the community members, maybe they have some innovative ideas which could be supported and encouraged by your guidance. So sir, without further ado, if I could invite Dr. Mukherjee first to say a few words about or not few words, but let's say your viewpoint on how this entire funding mechanism that you see for innovation. I think, sir, you were also involved quite much with COVID, although COVID may not be a long term issue, but I think pandemics may be. So and just to introduce to all of you who do not know Dr. Mukherjee, Dr. Mukherjee is a trained medical microbiologist with more than 25 years of experience in academic institute, pharma companies, and decade-long experience in national, international, philanthropic, and government funding agencies. So Dr. Mukherjee is a mission director of
Grand challenges in India.
yeah, so grand challenges in India. And I think some of us have heard him before. And I think, sir, you are a great storyteller, especially when it comes to, supporting innovators. At least I got goosebumps attending your, first workshop when you shared this story about the blind people cane and those kind of examples. So I think, sir, you are definitely one of those who want to see innovations come out and serve the wider population. So, sir, over to you to make your address. I don't know if you want to share your screen or you would want to just go ahead. Okay, sir, please, sir.
Thank you, Sachin, for this opportunity today. Our most respected Dr. K Singh, I think it is always pleasure to be in his company and his institution. My colleague, Dr. Sanjay, I think, who will be, the lead speaker today, and will tell you where to get the funds from. I think he has the pockets to tell you from where to get the funds from. So I will not take much time before Sanjay speaks. But I think what Sachin said, that in the context of this present pandemic, and the innovation has played a very critical setting with very critical role per se. And hats off to the government innovation ecosystem, which was created by creating institutions like BIRAC and other innovation ecosystem. They're all the Atal Innovation Mission and other things, which really tinkered innovation, because innovation can't happen overnight. The ecosystem which was created 5, 7 years, 10 years back really paid off during this pandemic. The innovation ecosystem, not only funding is one of the elements of the innovation ecosystem you have to fund, but apart from funding, there are other things which really catalyze and ignites the innovation ecosystem. Of course, science plays a critical role in the innovation, may it be engineering, the life sciences, or any other thing which the science or computer sciences, they all play a critical. Science is a critical thing. I tell 60% is science, but the other the other elements of the innovation ecosystem, like the mentoring, the exit strategy thinking, the ecosystem, the IP issues, the technology transfer issues, they all really combine with the science and the funding to see that the innovation, if it has legs to walk, can walk quickly and really hit the market and can be used for the human mankind. So that doesn't go overnight. So I think the ecosystem which was created 7, 8, 9 years back by creating organizations like BIRAC and other organizations really played a very critical role in enabling the ecosystem. And as I told, and Sanjay will also talk about the various funding pockets of the innovation ecosystem we have to support funding and enabling environment. But I think the idea is how the innovation takes place. And so innovation has to be, academic institutions are the breeding grounds for innovation, firstly. But these academic institutions sometimes take innovations to a level where a paper gets published, then it goes into the shelf. I think the ecosystem which was created in last decade or so really ignited and tinkered these academic labs to think of, what you call spinning these academic innovation into commercial exits. And that is possible when the ecosystem is challenged with ideas how to do it. Because the ecosystem or the academic settings where the innovation mainly happens, maybe in IITs, IISCs, ICERs, or in various institutes or clinical settings where major innovations are also happening these days, they need to be really pushed to say that now the innovation which is there with a valid proof of concept needs some idea to cross the valley of death. Valley of death means to really validate that from a test tube to a bigger reactor or a bigger scale, or if you have an alpha prototype of a device, to make a beta prototype and then to test in animals and then to test in humans and take it. So that enabling mechanisms, that push to the innovations at the grassroots level needs one of the very big push. And the idea behind these innovation hubs or the innovation ecosystem enabling was to create the incubators across length and breadth of country. BIRAC on its own has created 50 plus incubators or 55 plus incubators around. I think Sanjay will talk about it across the country. Now, these incubators were the breeding grounds for innovations. And these incubators, when you create those incubators, so an academic professor or a researcher or a student or a layperson who has some innovative idea in mind can walk into these incubators. And when they walk into these incubators are empowered, mentored to help you, first to give you some space with some basic instrumentation to try your innovation. Then the next step, what the innovators face is to raise funds for this innovation. So these incubators have a portfolio of funding mechanisms with them. May it be BIRAC or another funding agencies. Okay, this innovation fits in BIRAC's big grant, or I think Sanjay will talk about it, BIP or SIPRI, whatever grant. So they will really encourage you to tap those innovation, these granting pots. Once you have that fund with you, then you need to create a team. Or before funding, you need to think about the team. You are an innovator, you are a scientist, you are an engineer, you are a clinician, but you don't know what is IP. You don't know what is business, what is exit strategy, how to raise funds, how to do prototyping. You need to create a team around yourself. So these incubators help you to create, they have a list of mentors. They really help you to tie up to a mentor and then help you to create that team. So once the team is created, you get the funding. Then when you are walking through your innovation, you are scaling up your innovation, or you are practicing your innovation to a level where it can really walk through. You will need support from IP. You need to file an IP to at least to catalyze your innovation. You need to find IP support. So these incubators have panels, or through our funding agency, we have programs and to help you to find an IP to it, so that your innovation has some value into it. Then to license that IP. So again, you have mentors, you have empaneled firms within this incubator settings to really help you to license that IP. Once the IP is licensed, you have to monitor, you have to do incremental innovations to it. So I think these mentorship blocks within an incubator really helps you to take your innovations from a bench, you can say, to the bedside, or from the lab to the field, whatever type of innovation you work around. So I think this enabling mechanisms, I thought, because I would share with you, the incubation environment in India has really catalyzed the innovation ecosystem in India. And BIRAC alone, as I told you, has 55 plus incubators, but we have other incubators from the Atal Incubation Mission, the Tinkering Labs. It starts from the basic school levels as well, then the college levels incubators. BIRAC has programs, and again, Sanjay will talk about it, with the universities. And then slowly, then it takes to the next level. And then BIRAC has also programs to support you through filing of IP and licensing as well. So the idea behind enabling the innovation ecosystem is to really help not only the academic community who are doing continuous research to take their innovation from the lab to the market, but to ignite young minds in the university level, in the college level, to really take them. And that is our basic. If I take the example of this pandemic as well, if you see, when it started and the first case was discovered somewhere around February, and when within the government system, and Sanjay and I were really working, and we were working together in so the COVID consortium was formed within the government system to push innovation. We were falling short of PPE kits. We were falling short of thermal scanners. We were falling short of these oximeters, pulse oximeters. We were falling short of sanitizers. So, but when we launched our first call through COVID consortium on 15th of March 2020, and it was closed on 30th of March 2020, and the decision was announced on 15th of April. And you see our innovators which came up, and we have almost 2-3 innovators who were making PPE kits. Now we are these innovators who were supplying PPE kits to the GEM system, to the government of India, to other, now they are exporting it. We were the thermal scanners, we are exporting it. We have really done well for India. Similarly, sanitizers. We have various types of sanitizer. If you come to our office, we can show, they are handheld, they are auto disposables and things like that. So they have really cropped up in a very, very big way. And our innovation ecosystem, BIRAC has supported almost 2,000 plus innovators through its 8-9 years of its years of existence. And these innovators really pushed these innovations from their lab to the market, and we are really pleased about. And these are all young people who have come out of the universities. They have done PhDs or medical student, or they are them this MD, and they want to build a career. Innovation engineering students, they really came out, tried this innovation, and we had initially funded them, of course, for some other things. But now, similarly, now oxygen concentrators, which was a great amount, now AMTZ, which is our funding, which is where we have funded, they are rolling out oxygen concentrators heavily into the market at high value and with very good quality. So if we would have not enabled our ecosystem well, this time of crisis, though initially maramari thi, we were really fighting for things, but right now on a couple of things we have got stabilized. We have best quality of PPEs, we have best quality of, and similarly I should not take much time because Sanjay has to speak, the vaccine things. We initially, when we started the COVID consortium, DBT-BIRAC started the COVID consortium along with our other funding partners like the Grand Challenges, the National Biopharma Mission. We had 5 parallels: the vaccine, the therapeutics, the diagnostics. I forgot to spell about diagnostics. Our diagnostics was, again, small companies, startup companies came out with diagnostics, and they are best. They were approved by ICMRs and they are being used. The price went down. And then drug discovery and also the other interventions where I and Sanjay both work together is on the ventilators, low-cost ventilators. We funded them, and they are in the market right now. So I think the innovation really came. Vaccines, if I talk about vaccines, though we should be really proud that within 1 year we came out with vaccines. But I think our academic, we have funded around 25 to 26 vaccine candidates, which slowly next 2, 3, 4 months, you will see a couple of more candidates like coming out, like we have the DNA vaccine, the mRNA vaccine, all funded through our consortium, and the COVID Suraksha mission, which we are managing, are going to come out. So I think this has happened because our policy, our support, our enabling mechanism really supported innovation at a very, very right level. But saying so, we need further push. As I think we say, we fund 100 projects, 5 or 7 are successful. So I think we need further push to increase that numbers, to make it vote, to go to from 4 metros, 5 metros to capitals, to tier 2, tier 3 cities, to grassroots levels, and that our organizations are trying right now to go to tier 2, tier 3 cities, to build innovation culture there, ecosystem there, so that innovation and students from those areas, academics from those areas can come up there. So I think that is the idea, and I think we continue to be supporting it. Now I think I'll stop here, and Sanjay is going to speak on what are the funding pots are available, where the innovators should strike on. So I think that is what there. So thank you very much for hearing. Thank you, sir, and thank you, Sachin, for the time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It is extreme pleasure again for us to have you. And I think you already mentioned a number of times about Dr. Sanjay Saxena. So let me just formally introduce Dr. Saxena, and with great pleasure, we invite you, Dr. Sanjay, to join us today. Dr. Sanjay is working as General Manager and Head Investment at BIRAC. And of course, he's going to introduce BIRAC formally to all of us. So I would not go into details about BIRAC here. But Dr. Sanjay, similar to Dr. Mukherjee, comes with a long experience in this domain. Dr. Sanjay, prior to BIRAC in 2015, he was working with TERI, another renowned institute from India. And he was associated with the execution of several research projects pertaining to plant biotechnology and related aspects. And Dr. Sanjay has been with this position for the last 26 years, over 26 years. And he has also published 35 research papers in various national and international journals. So I think Dr. Sanjay is coming not just from an administrative and management background, but also coming from a serious research background similar to Dr. Mukherjee. So it's a proud pleasure to have you, Dr. Sanjay, today. And I would request you to, start, but just let me make a housekeeping announcement. Sir, if you see, there is a Q&A panel. And Mr. Mukul Bagga, who is one of the senior executive in the healthcare industry and also our Innovators Club member, has already shared a lot of questions in the Q&A tab. So I would encourage everyone, as Dr. Sanjay would make his presentation, kindly put your questions in the Q&A tab like Mr. Mukul Bagga has done. So this will help us to do a very lively discussion. And Dr. Mukherjee, we would request you to join Dr. Saxena after his presentation is over, because he insisted in fact that there might be questions which are more COVID specific, because he's probably focusing in general on all kind of innovations, and he was mentioning to me that you have played a more specific role in COVID related innovations. So maybe it would be a good group or teamwork, if I may say. So over to you, Dr. Sanjay. A warm welcome again from our side, from IC Innovators Club. And we look forward to know more from you about the interventions that BIRAC is making.
Thank you, Sachin ji, and good afternoon, Dr. Singh, and all the other members who are attending this webinar. Firstly, please confirm, are you able to hear me properly? The audio and the video is clear?
Yes, sir. All fine, sir. All fine.
Perfect. Although initially I was assigned a topic which is specific to healthcare, but what I have done is that in case if there are members who are not from medical background, this presentation would also be useful to them, although the focus would be largely on healthcare, but this could be for others as well. So I'm going to finish my presentation in next 20-25 minutes. I'm not going to take very long, and the focus would be more on, I should say, the question and answer session. But there is a strong possibility that some of the questions which were flagged in the previous session might get answered through this presentation. So firstly, coming down to the overall biotech sector in India, like it is expected that by 2025, the Indian biotech sector would be something like $150 billion. This is a very conservative figure. This is expected to go up quite significantly. Now, to reach these targets is extremely challenging. Department of Biotechnology has been there for a long time. But if we have to meet such kind of targets, DBT 10 years, almost nine years back, or 10 years back, I should say, conceived this, that if we have to make biotech industry so vibrant, there is a need to create an institution like BIRAC, and it is with this objective that DBT had created this Biotechnology Industry Research Assistance Council in 2012. It's a Section 8 not-for-profit company, and we are primarily dedicated to support startup entrepreneurs, SMEs, etc. And we are trying to help them out in developing various kinds of biotech products and technologies. Now, these biotech products and technologies are not restricted only to the healthcare segment, but all aspects of biotechnology, which besides healthcare also includes agriculture, industrial biotechnology, waste management, sanitation, clean energy, etc., etc. And through our efforts, besides supporting entrepreneurs and startup and companies, we are also trying to make a small contribution to the various mission programs that Government of India has launched. So wherever there is a possibility of any biotech component, BIRAC is trying to make a small contribution over there. As Dr. Mukherjee pointed out, that if we are talking of the overall, I should say, entrepreneurial ecosystem, it has got multiple components. It's just not funding alone, but you also need an incubation space. You need a good technical team. One would also require mentorship, so on and so forth. But I think it would be a little difficult for me to cover up everything that BIRAC has been doing in all these areas in 20 minutes. So in this talk, I'm going to focus more on the funding opportunities. There are several other things that BIRAC is into, but maybe some other time. I may touch upon these aspects, but will not go into the details. The focus of the presentation will remain the various funding opportunities available at BIRAC. Just to inform the participants, it is just not the startups or the companies that we support. We support individuals, we support small biotech companies, we even support large biotech companies. It's research institutions, universities, NGOs, societies. So it's a blend of all in academia, industry, non-profit organizations, so on and so forth. And when it comes to the different stages of product or technology development, we are supporting right from idea stage till commercializations. And there are different schemes which cater to different stages of product development. Perhaps BIRAC is one of those few funding organizations who are even providing funds if you have just an idea and you want to develop a proof of principle or a proof of concept. So if you've got an interesting idea, the funds can be made available through various schemes. And then thereafter, once you have developed a proof of concept, one would like to go for validation studies, and then later on, the pre-commercialization and almost the commercialization stage, right up to the market. So I'm going to talk about some of these schemes. The first scheme that I would like to talk about is BIT scheme. Now, this particular scheme basically meant for individuals and startups for very, very early stage research, very early stage, just at the idea. Now, we have got 2 calls in a year. They are announced on 1st of January and 1st of July. So far, 18 calls for proposals have already been announced. And in each call, although the number is not fixed, it all depends on the availability of funds. But on an average, we have been supporting about 60 to 70 odd proposals in each call. And with every passing year, the number of proposals being supported is going up. Under this scheme, each innovator receives about 50 lakhs of rupees. That is the maximum amount. That doesn't mean that everybody would get 50 lakhs. It all depends on the nature of the proposal. And the duration of the project is about 18 months. This scheme is executed and managed through 8 big partners whose job is to help the grantees by providing incubation space, helping them, mentoring them, monitoring their work, creating a network so that these startups or the individuals could come up with a prototype, if not more. And this is within the 18 months because there is no scope for extension of the project. So after 18 months, one would expect a big grantee to come up with at least some kind of a prototype or a technology. Will not get into too much of details of this, but just to inform you about the eligibility criteria. Each individual entrepreneur could be a graduate in any discipline or a scholar or a scientist. And the most important part is that it must be incubated in a recognized incubator. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that it should be a BIRAC supported incubator, because Dr. Mukherjee mentioned that BIRAC has already established more than 55 incubators. It could be any recognized incubator. coming down to the TRLs. Now, this is something I would like to introduce to many who are attending this webinar. TRLs basically refers to technology readiness level, and it is measured on a scale from 1 to 9. If you are at TRL 1, that means you are at a very, very early stage of product development. And as you move towards TRL 9, means you are closer to commercialization. So all our schemes have been linked to the TRLs. And it also helps the innovators as well as investors to identify, like what stage of technology they are presently looking at or it is being supported. And besides informing the applicants about the TRL and the appropriateness of the scheme which supports that particular TRL, we are also helping out the grantees or the applicants by informing them about the various regulatory approvals and the quality certifications that may be needed depending upon the TRL level at which their product is. Now, once a proof of concept has been generated under the big scheme, we have got other schemes, the foremost being the I4, which basically means intensifying the impact of industrial innovation. Now, this program has been initiated primarily to support the biotechnological products and technology for strengthening the R&D capabilities of startups. Now, it is just not the startup. As I said, it could be companies, it could be LLPs, so on and so forth. Now, I would also like to mention here that while the big grantees are encouraged to apply under this scheme, one can also apply directly under the I4 scheme. Now, this I4 program is operated through two different schemes. We call them as SIBRI and BIPP. SIBRI is a Small Business Innovation Research Initiative, while BIPP is Biotechnology Industry Partnership Program. Now, these are some of the very old schemes launched by Department of Biotechnology. Now, so far as SIBRI is concerned, this was perhaps the first biotech funding scheme launched by DBT way back in 2005. So almost 16 years back, this particular scheme was launched. And it facilitates early stage research undertaken by the industry. Now, when we say early stage research, it means up to TRL 6. Kindly recall my previous slide where the TRLs were described. So SIBRI supports up to TRL 6, and if your endpoint of the research study is TRL 7 and above, then it will fall under the BIPP scheme. Later on, I will try to explain how the two schemes are different. In both the schemes, there is no ceiling with regard to the total cost of the project. Now, who all are eligible to apply under this two schemes? It could be individual companies which are registered or incorporated under the Companies Act of 2013, or the LLPs, either alone or along with other companies or academia. Now, this is a very interesting feature. While the lead would be a company, along with that lead applicant, there could be another company or an academia jointly submitting a proposal. Now, the criteria here is that at least 51% of the shares of the company must be held by Indian passport holders. This does not cover PIOs and OCIs. So 51% is a critical factor, that the shares must be held by Indian passport holders. Another important thing that the applicant has to look for, that either they should have an adequate in-house research facility to implement the project, or they could be incubated in a recognized incubation facility. Now, when we say adequate in-house facility, how do we really judge that? Later on, I will be explaining that whenever a project is awarded, before that, the site visits are carried out where the technical expert visit the project implementation site, They look into that what sort of infrastructure is available with the company or the applicant, and what sort of technical manpower is available with them, and whether they are in a position to implement the project or not. So it is important that before anybody submits the application, they should ensure that they have these facilities. Coming down to the funding pattern, in SIBRI scheme, if the project cost is up to 50 lakhs, then the entire cost of the project, that is 100% cost, is borne by BIRAC. However, if the project cost is more than 50 lakhs, then the funding available from BIRAC would be 50 lakhs plus 50% of the amount exceeding rupees 50 lakhs. So if I could take an example, suppose the total project cost is 100 lakhs. BIRAC would be contributing 50 lakhs plus 50% of the remaining 50 lakhs, which means 75 lakhs would be contributed by BIRAC, while 25 lakhs would be put in by the company. However, if the project cost is less than 50, then everything is contributed by BIRAC. Now, this is with respect to the funds that goes to the company. If the project also involves an academic collaborator, would like to emphasize not a company, academic collaborator, then the cost of the academic collaborator is also borne by BIRAC. Now, this is just to give you an idea how this scheme has performed over the last so many years. Close to 2,000 proposals have been received, and till date, more than 50 products have been developed. I'm not getting into the details of it because of paucity of time. I'll come down to the next scheme. The BIPP scheme is one which was launched in 2009 under the PPP program. And the objective of this scheme is basically to validate and scale up and commercialize the technologies that have been developed through SIBRI or otherwise. Now, in both the schemes, the IP rights remain with the industry. Now, this is very important thing. BIRAC does not stake any claim on the IP rights. Irrespective of the scheme, whether it is BIPP or SIBRI, the IP rights remain with the industry. The only difference would be with the funding pattern. Unlike SIBRI, where up to 50 lakh, it is BIRAC support. Here, irrespective of the cost of the project, 50% of the project cost has to be borne by the company, and there is a logic and a rationale behind this. Because BIPP is one scheme which is primarily aimed towards supporting a research above TRL 7, which means the company has been in existence for about 3-4 years. So it is expected that if a company has been there for 3 or 4 or more years, perhaps it would be in a position to generate that many funds. And otherwise also, through BIPP, the end point is going to be close to commercialization, and that's why the companies are expected to contribute 50% of the project cost, irrespective of the value of the project. Now, under this program, nearly 1,300 proposals were received, and only 224 were approved or sanctioned. So that gives you an idea about the success rate. This figure is still high. If you ask me today, the success rate is about 10 to 12%, because the number of proposals over the last 3-4 years that we are receiving has gone up substantially. And the success rate is not more than 10%, although we do not put any ceiling from our side, but this is the trend that we have seen over the last 2-3 years. Under this program, close to 50 technologies have been developed. Now, in both BIP and the SIBRI scheme, irrespective of the cost or the nature of the project, the applicants, once the product gets commercialized, are expected to pay a royalty to BIRAC. This is, it starts from the first sale of the product and would terminate once the royalty amount paid becomes equal to the amount of the granted aid disbursed. So earlier, this royalty component was there only in the BIPP scheme, but since this year, 1st of January 2021, this has been introduced in all the schemes that BIRAC operates. Now, so far I talked about the schemes or the funding opportunities that are available to the industry. PACE scheme is primarily aimed towards the academia, because we have seen that many of our academic institutions are doing very interesting research, and to encourage them to take up something which is of commercial significance, because I hope the participants would agree, in academia the focus is more towards generating a PhD and going publishing a paper, but just to bring them out and orient them towards developing a product and commercializing it, these two schemes were launched. Now, AIR scheme, or what we call it as academic innovation research, basically promotes development of proof of concept. That means the early stage research for a process or a product developed by the academia. But if this the academic institution which is submitting the proposal also involves industry, then it is all the more good. There is an extra weightage given, because the intention is that sooner or later, whatever research that is being carried out in this academic institution needs to get commercialized. So if there is the involvement of industry from the very beginning, that would be an ideal situation. Now, once the proof of concept has been generated under the AIR scheme, there is a contract research scheme, which basically aims at validating of a process or a prototype developed by the academia through an industrial partner. While the involvement of industry in the AIR scheme is optional, it is mandatory to have an industrial partner under the CRS scheme, because ultimately what we want is that the product should get commercialized. Now, what sort of projects are supported under the AIR scheme? You need to have proof of principle. This is absolutely essential. One cannot submit proposals starting with literature survey and all that. Such kind of proposals are not supported by BIRAC. You may submit it, but it's very unlikely the project will ever get supported. So basic exploratory research without any proof of principle and low commercial potential is not going to be supported by BIRAC. So far as the duration of the project is concerned, till March this year, it was 18 months, but in light of COVID, we have extended the overall duration of the project to 24 months. Let us see, maybe at a later stage, once things get normalized, probably we will again bring it down to 18 months, because the intention is that the product should hit the market as soon as possible. We don't want to get into a research which lasts for 5 years or 7 years. There are other funding agencies available who can support such kind of a research activity, but here the focus is that we take the product to the market as soon as possible. Another important aspect here is that the non-recurring cost must not exceed 10% of the total cost, which under no circumstances should be more than 50 lakhs. Again, the IP rights may be held either by the academia or jointly by academia and industry, depending upon the understanding the two have. We are not going to stake any claim in that. Coming down to who can apply under this scheme, as I mentioned, it's academic institutions, both public, private, universities, NGOs, etc., either individually or jointly with other academic or industrial partners. So, while the ceiling of the budget will remain there, that is of 50 lakhs, but there could be as many as 2, 3, 4 partners. The lead partner would be an academia, but there could be any number of partners. There is no restrictions imposed by BIRAC. Let's skip this. This is something which we have introduced from the last call, which was announced on 1st of April, because we were getting too many projects. Last time we had as many as 360 proposals received in a single call, and it becomes absolutely crazy evaluating that many proposals with the limited manpower that we have. And we also need to stick to our deadline of completing the evaluation process in 150 days. So what we have done is that some kind of technical eligibility criteria has been introduced to bring a little more seriousness among the applicants. So it is now imperative that the applicant must have completed at least one extramural project supported by industry or a government agency in India with a minimum duration of 3 years, and that too in the same area in which the research project has been proposed. Second thing is that the applicant must have authored one publication as first or the lead author, or have a patent in the same research area in which the proposal is proposed. And above all, the evidence of proof of principle duly supported by the preliminary data must be there. So these are some important factors which have been introduced recently to bring in the quality component, because it really becomes difficult when you are dealing with such large number of projects to give them same level of attention. So we hope that with this change, probably the applicants will become a little more conscious about the quality part, and will take it with little more seriousness. Now, these are some other eligibility criteria which have been introduced, that at the completion of the AIR project, the project should be ready to move to CRS. That means that it should be ready for the validation process. So there are other things also. I will not get into the details. See, the another thing is that under the AIR scheme, the project must end with a definite proof of concept. While we do promote upcoming or emerging technologies, but at the end of the day, we would like to see that the project that has been supported by BIRAC at least reaches to the TRL3 or the TRL4 stage under the AIR scheme. There are other eligibility conditions. Those who are interested may please refer to the BIRAC website. There the entire scheme document is available, and if there are further queries, please feel free to write to us. This is to just give you an idea about the number of proposals received, sanction, and products that have been developed. You would see that the number of technologies that have been developed through the AIR scheme are relatively less, and there is a logic behind it, because AIR basically supports early stage research. So it's very unlikely that one would be able to develop a complete technology, go right up to the commercialization stage when you are still at the proof of concept stage. So that is one of the reasons why you see the number of products and technology developed under the scheme are relatively few. But here again, the success rate is about 10 to 12%. This is just to give you an idea, how do we announce our calls? We have got 3 calls in a year, and we have 2 types of call. One is the challenge call and the other is a regular call. A regular call is one where the applicant decides on the research problem. We do not impose any restriction, and the applicant, depending upon his or her area of interest, can submit a proposal in any aspect related to biotechnology. Now, challenge calls are those where we define the areas in which the proposals are invited. Like last call, which was announced in February and that ended on 31st of March, was aimed towards import substitute and plant and soil health management. So in every call, we pick up certain topics, and the applicants are expected to submit proposals only under those areas. Now, this is with regard to the challenge calls. In regular calls, there's no such restriction. And these calls are announced alternately. So we have got one challenge call, and then the next call would be a regular call. What sort of projects we do not support? Concept, exploratory research ideas without any proof of principle or proof of concept are not supported. Similarly, proposals without any preliminary data or which lack the potential for commercialization are also not supported. Funding cannot be used to support PhD students for research or any other research activity. And the grant is not a research fellowship. This is something which I would like to inform everyone, because the duration is fixed. And another important thing is that the funds are released only once the milestones have been achieved, which I'm going to explain it in detail now. So coming down to how do you submit the proposals, all the proposals are submitted online. For that, one is whether it is a company or an academia is required to register at the BIRAC website. Wait for the call announcement, because most of these calls are of fixed duration. So one needs to keep visiting the BIRAC website. And once you have developed an understanding and decided on under which scheme you want to apply, accordingly, one can look into the calendar and schedule the way these calls are around, because that remains fixed. Now, after the submission of the proposal, these proposals are reviewed by the BIRAC team. They look into the eligibility criteria, and once the eligibility criteria has been established, the proposals are assigned to the subject experts who review the proposal. Now, each proposal will go to multiple experts of the same research background. The comments received from the various experts are then presented to the technical expert committee, which after due diligence will shortlist the proposals for a presentation by the PI. Now, after the PI's presentation, that is the next stage of screening, there are proposals shortlisted for the site visit, which means the technical experts as well as the financial experts would visit the project implementation site to see the infrastructure, the technical competence of the team, etc., as well as the financial health of the company. Now, the findings of the technical and the financial team are then presented in the technical expert committee, and which then takes a decision which are the proposals which are to be placed before the consideration of the Apex committee, which is headed by the Secretary DBT, who is also the chairperson of BIRAC. So this entire process takes about 5 months, 150 days. And so far as the thematic areas are concerned, as you would notice, in healthcare, we have got devices and diagnostics, drugs, drug delivery, biosimilars, stem cells, vaccine, clinical trials. So, the whole gamut and of aspects of healthcare are covered. And besides healthcare, it is agriculture, secondary agriculture, aquaculture, veterinary sciences, environment, energy, anything that has a component of biotechnology is supported by BIRAC. Now, what are the parameters that are taken into account when the shortlisting is done and eventually the award is given? It's the scientific merit, the innovation level, commercialization potential. Now, that's very important. The expert committee would also look into the approach and the methodology. Now, there are instances where the committee is not very comfortable by the methodology suggested by the PI. And in that case, they may also even advise the applicant that please change your methodology. And that what differentiates BIRAC from other funding agencies, that it is just not, doing the review and telling them that this is not good, but we are also even guiding them how to correct the things in case if they are going wrong. The applicants are also guided on the regulatory issues. And apart from that, one critical factor, as I had been emphasizing on, the preliminary work done under that the study that you are proposing. Now, this is very, very important. And I would like to mention one more point. There are instances where the applicants somehow are reluctant to share all the details in the proposals. We don't expect you to disclose everything, but please don't make it too short, because your proposals would be evaluated on the basis of what you are including in the project proposal. Because many times we hear from the applicants at a later stage, oh, I had done so much, but I couldn't include that in the proposal. Well, sir, it's your fault. If you do not include the relevant information in the proposal, the experts are only going to evaluate you on the basis of what you include in black and white, rather than what you have been holding or keeping with you in your files. So please be careful. Do include this data. If it is of commercial importance, please, we don't want you to divulge all details. And I think the applicants are smart enough to differentiate that what is important from IP point of view and what is not. So please strike a balance. Now, once the proposal has been sanctioned, we carry out site visits, and the projects are monitored by the technical expert committee on a regular basis. I'm not getting into the details because of the time constraint. This is the way the funds are released. We give you 30% upfront, and then on the completion of each milestone. So for each study, there would be 3 milestones, and 20% of the funds are released on completion of each milestone. And I must like to inform you that in case the milestone is not accomplished, I'm sorry, the funds will not be released further. So there are instances wherein the milestones are not achieved and BIRAC is forced to foreclose such projects. I'll come down to one important slide, and I would request you to please see this carefully. When you submit the proposal, please do refer to the RFP document. Invariably, we have seen the applicants do not refer to the RFP document. They just submit the proposal without looking into as to which are the topics that have been covered in the particular call. So there are instances where at times 30%, 40% of the proposals, they are very interesting proposals, but since they are not falling within the scope of the call, we don't consider that. Also, please refer to the scheme document and see what is the eligibility criteria, the funding pattern, etc., etc. Just don't submit it like that. And as you decide on the research problem, please do carry out a proper market survey, because when your project is being evaluated, the experts are going to ask you about the nature of the project, what sort of unmet need it is going to fulfill. Is it serving as an import substitute? Who is going to be your competitors, and what sort of commercial viability is there? Regulatory aspects may please be looked into, although we are going to guide you on that, but please see whether you would be able to achieve everything within that stipulated time of 18 months or 2 years, 2.5 years. Don't submit proposals which would be, of 4 years or 5 years duration. The composition of the team is important. So is the selection of the collaborator. Many of the collaborators, which is an industry, have been blacklisted by BIRAC because they haven't performed or there were some financial issues in past. So the choice of the collaborator is should be very carefully done. Plus, you have to ensure that since you are expected to make contribution, please ensure that sufficient funds are available. And last, not the least, the deadline for submission of proposals must be respected, because under no circumstances the deadline of proposal submission is extended. Nowadays, it is around 5:30. In each call, we announce that what is going to be the time, and after that, sorry, we don't entertain any requests. And it's just a word of caution, because 90% of the proposals are received in last 2 days. And then we hear all kind of complaints that the site crashed or the internet issues, so on and so forth. Because the thing is, the call is open for 45 days. So enough time available for someone to submit a proposal. But in spite of all our efforts and awareness programs, we still find that 90% of the proposals being submitted in last 2 days. As much as possible, please try to avoid this. There are other programs also. Sachinji, do you want me to continue, or I can just stop?
Sir, I think we can now go into a discussion mode, if that's okay.
I think that
with you.
would be better, because BIRAC is into so many things. But this is something I would like to share with the audience, that Whatever we have covered here is fine, but it's too short a time to cover everything that BIRAC is into. There would be several questions that you may have. We will try to answer them out, but still, if they are not adequately answered, or if you feel that you have got something more to ask, please feel free to write to us. So the phone number is there, the email address is there, and yeah, it's me and my other colleagues are there to help you all. So please feel free to write to me or to Dr. Mukherjee, depending upon the scheme in which you are planning to submit your proposal or otherwise. So that is all what I had to say. I think there was one query wherein in the last session in the chat box, you know, like to what important products and technologies that have come through BIRAC support. But so far, BIRAC has, through BIRAC efforts, more than 150 products and technologies have been developed. They are at different stages. They are already in the market, a good number of them. There might be some that who have just entered the market, so may not have huge volumes, but a beginning has been made. The commercial sales have started, maybe in small numbers, but yes, they are there. So with this, I would like to conclude my presentation, and this thing, if somebody is interested, only 3 days left. We have announced, a request for expression of interest under Mission COVID Suraksha. Now, these are the additional calls which we keep announcing, like Dr. Mukherjee mentioned, because of COVID. There were 3-4 special calls announced. What I shared with you were the regular ones. These are additional calls. So if anybody is interested, may please feel free to apply under this call. Incidentally, it is closing on 15th. You don't have much time left, but I thought still, if somebody could do it, you've got 3 days to go. All right, with this, I'd like to close and ask.
Maybe you can stop sharing the screen, and I would like to invite Dr. Mukherjee also,
Sure.
if he could switch on his camera so that we can have a view where we can see your faces. Dr. Mukherjee, if you are there, may I request you to switch on your camera as well? So, sir, let me first of all congratulate you and your department, I think, for a very, already a long journey. And I think you mentioned in your presentation, you have done 18 cycles, which
That is for the
big
program.
Yeah, so this is, an evolution. And I think the quality of participation improves, in any such program over the years. So I'm just wondering, when a novice person participates or want to participate in such funding schemes, of course, from the government side, the evolution is happening in general, and probably you are aiming for a, bigger and better kind of impact. Is there kind of an intervention where you also support in proposal writing, or have you seen this kind of ecosystem emerging now?
Dr. Mukherjee, would you like to comment or
No, I think Sanjay, you can also comment. We do it together. So, we run help in proposal writing means we don't sit with you and write your proposal. But Sanjay and myself run a lot of grant writing workshops and grant clinics, which is an integral part of BIRAC's enabling mechanism, where, as I told you in the beginning, and Sanjay, so we are targeting tier 2, tier 3 cities, in institutes, universities, where a lot of student communities are getting grants, which Sanjay talked about. So to enable them, we, along with the team, Sanjay, myself, and along with Sanjay, and Sanjay has a nice team which goes around the country and help them to, how to answer questions in the proposal, what should you write. So that is an integral part. Before any call is announced, we, Sanjay and myself, we do a lot of grant writing workshops and grant clinics, model proposal writing we do along with that. So that is an integral part of our Sanjay. Sanjay, over to you if I missed something.
Oh, well, you said it. I mean, we had been doing this and conducting such workshops on a regular basis, but since last year, because of COVID, we are not able to visit places physically, but still through webinars, we are trying to help out the grantees, the applicants in grant writing. Although the number is not the same as what it used to be prior to the COVID days, but still in whatever little way we could do, we are still trying to do that. So it's an integral part, as Dr. Mukherjee said. We do conduct these workshops regularly. Either we make the announcement, or at times we are approached by various institutions and agencies that, okay, please conduct such kind of workshops. It might be useful to those who are working over there.
Do you also publish a calendar of these events, or this is more?
No, there is no, because, you know, it's really difficult with the kind of workload and our engagements. But yes, we are open. I mean, if somebody says that you conduct a workshop, we may not be able to do it in next 10 days, 15 days, but certainly, I think at a short notice, such grant writing workshops can be organized. We do that.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So maybe I segue into another question here, which is more like asking this, that we have seen, you know, at least here in India now, we have seen a lot of limitation when some innovator wants to build something, especially in the crisis situation. There was a supply chain issue. And I think a lot of people realized only after they have the idea and they have the desire to build it, that they could not import A, B, C, D, you know, kind of things. So have you made similar observations at your office? And do you think what kind of interventions could enable, you know, these kind of innovators? Yes, sir, please.
Shall I answer, Sanjay?
Yeah, please, sir.
Yeah. So yeah, you are absolutely right, and I can take you an example, and Sanjay can jump in where I missed something. It is, for example, diagnostics, the diagnostic kits. You know, when these COVID situation came in, the first thing was development, low cost, affordable. We were only one diagnostic center in India, which was NCDC. Now slowly we have 2,000 plus diagnostic center, and it is growing every day. So the idea why was that diagnostic kit has lot of reagents and peptides and tools and in it, which is all imported. Now it was a big challenge for getting imported and getting the companies to supply to, and then giving it to these startups or the companies to make it. So DBT along with BIRAC took a very good initiative called NBRIC. And it is based out of CCamp in Bangalore, which was created a platform to import all these tools and raw materials to one platform, and then help these startups and other companies to take it from there. So this was one enabling mechanisms we created during these pandemic times. And this was based at the Bangalore Bio Cluster. I think also Sanjay, I think talked about, we have a mechanism called First Hub, which is held every first Friday of the month from 4 to 5:30 or 6. We also call it Open Darbar, where myself, my colleague PKS leads onto it. And what happens is we have representatives from all the key stakeholder ministries sitting there, from DBT, of course, from BIRAC, ICMR, Ministry of Health, GEM, CDSCO, that is Drug Controller General of India, Bureau of Indian Standards, AMTZ, and I think one or two more. And any innovator, it has been funded by BIRAC, it can go into our website, either book an appointment from there and come to us and talk to them about the problem. For example, he has developed a product, but he's not able to sell it. So how to get into GEM? How to get it a BSA certification into it? If there is some issue with CDSO. So senior level officers from each of these departments sit there and try to solve your problem. And this was initiated by, actually Niti Aayog initiated this, and Dr. Vinod Paul initiated this, and BIRAC was asked to host it, and it has very successfully is being run. And during COVID, we ran it every Friday because a lot of innovators were trying to come in. So we ran it every Friday, and every Friday people were walking in. And similarly for our IP clinic, we have started second Friday of the month. Anybody has any IP or licensing related problem, first Friday is First Hub, second Friday is IP and electric licensing. So you can, and senior officers from BIRAC sit there and join that, and you can come with your query, how to file an IP, or if you have filed an IP, how to license that IP. So we try to help and handhold them. So this is one of the mechanisms. Similarly, we try to do for medical devices. AMTZ in Visakhapatnam was asked to make get the raw materials there. So we are trying to enable that, and during the pandemic. Sanjay, over to you if I have missed something.
No, Nexam, I think you covered it all, but I may just add that, for every project that is supported by BIRAC under the BIP and the SIBRI or the CRS scheme, we have got 2 technical experts attached to the project whose job is not only to review the progress of the project, but also to mentor or guide them. And it is not just these 2 experts, but even the entire technical expert committee. As and when the grantee faces any kind of difficulty, may it be IP related, may it be technical, may it be pertaining to, availability of certain consumables, or they are looking for some specialized technical guidance from a particular expert. So, all these resources are made available by BIRAC through our experts or through direct intervention. So we are making every possible effort to help these entrepreneurs by providing these technical, Dr. Mukherjee mentioned about the IP support. And last thing that I would like to mention here is about the regulatory support, which is, I think, so important nowadays, because practically every proposal that is supported by BIRAC has got some of the regulatory approvals requirement. So when a proposal is submitted to BIRAC, we ask the applicant that you indicate which are the regulatory approvals you feel you would be requiring. It is basically to make them aware, because in the initial stages we found that the applicants would just submit the proposal without paying any attention to the regulatory aspect. So we ask them that you first identify, and then each proposal is placed before a special regulatory committee whose job is only to identify the regulatory approvals that may be required to seek clearance from, and we make this thing aware to the inform the applicant well in advance, even before the project is executed. They don't even start working on the project. That at the GLA stage itself, we inform them that before technical milestone, you would be requiring these 3 approvals. After that, you would be requiring this, and not just telling them, but also helping them out that how do you, resolve those issues, may it be IP or regulatory.
I think, sir, this is all heartening to hear. Very well-placed initiatives. I don't know how recent are these, but just let me bring to your attention during the COVID time, around March, April last year. Around then, we already, with Ministry of Education, we did 3 hackathons at the national level. And at least 2 of them were only focused on COVID. And the participations that we had, from the union minister to, various students in the higher education sector. So we had around 10,000 people in each one of them. And we ran them over, a period of a week. So when people are trying to, work in a very ad hoc manner, not in a very planned manner, and respond to the crisis, that's where this observation came that, everybody was, trying to find resources, and especially like you made the comment about the tier 2, tier 3 places, because some of them were experiencing lockdown. So even if they would want to build a ventilator, they were, losing heart, and at that point of time, I was also speaking to some of the IAS officers who were in charge of their district. Can we have some kind of a district level 3D printing setup, or some kind of, like in the old days, we had a ration shop, right, where you could buy. So could you have a ration shop kind of mechanism for getting these kind of, components at a district or a state level? So of course, it's good to know that it's already happening, and you're also providing an opportunity to speak to these people virtually. So maybe, sir, my request is that, if there is a person like us who is planning to organize a hackathon, maybe we could reach out to BIRAC and, seek, this kind of virtual expertise, especially in the jury, or, those innovators who really want to go for further once they have developed the product and, take it further, because maybe at times they do not know your funding opportunities or interventions. So having a opportunity to invite officially BIRAC people in the jury of such hackathons may give a linkage to these funding opportunities at a later date. That is one observation, sir. Second, I wonder, this word biotechnology gives a lot of ideas. And I just see a question that can a pharma person apply for BIRAC funding? I think healthcare is becoming increasingly a multidisciplinary topic where an IT person may think of an AI intervention and somebody else may think of a similar intervention, but it's not coming from a healthcare expert. It's coming, or not from a biotech expert, but it's coming from a non-biotech expert. So do you think that people at times may not apply to BIRAC thinking that they are not biotechnology background? Have you recognized this, or have you made any observations on this, that are we limiting because of the choice of word here?
Daksha, can I comment here? Is Dr. Mukherjee there?
Sir, I think he was there, but maybe.
Maybe I can take up this question.
Yes, sir.
And
Please.
later on, he can add on to this. You'd be surprised that in AIR scheme and the CRS scheme, which is meant for the academia, majority of the projects that we are receiving are from engineering institutes. Like IITs, today, if you ask me, at least 30% of the total projects that we have supported so far are from IITs. And they are not from medical or biomedical background. Many of them are working on sensors, and they are electrical engineers. But what is happening, they are also working on agriculture related activities. So what they do is that if somebody is developing a sensor, now sensor is something which a biologist cannot develop. So it has to be done by an engineer. Now that person, along with in collaboration with an agricultural university. So that's why, in all the schemes, we give this flexibility of collaboration. And in fact, we strongly support this activity of academia industry partnership. That, okay, fine, because we don't expect the startups or entrepreneurs to have a very, very strong technical team. Like a company which has been established just 2 years ago, we can't expect them to spend so much on technical manpower, and they're just startups. So what we tell them is that, okay, it's better that you have an academia or a larger industry as your collaborator, which can bring in some technical, advantage to the company. And wherever it's possible, even our experts, we are not going to tell you that you go to that particular company because that's against the rules. But we will tell you that, okay, fine, that if you look for a partner in an agriculture university who has got such and such expertise, this will further strengthen the execution of the project. So right at the early stage, when you are in the process of finding a collaborator, or once a project has been put into implementation, at that stage also, such kind of guidance is provided. But nowadays, I think majority of the proposals that we are supporting, there is no such barrier that it is coming only from healthcare or agriculture is writing, only an agriculture is writing a project on agriculture. It's all interdisciplinary. In every project, you've got a software guy or a plant biotechnologist and a electrical engineer all joining hands together.
Sir, rightly said. I think just let me add few more subtle questions here. I think then there should be a frequently asked question on your website that, you are not only looking proposals from biotechnology guys, and, especially in this chat already, somebody from pharma is saying, can I apply? So I think it's all inclusive. That's the message here, which is really welcome. And I think maybe it started from DBT, but the word DBT is so loaded, so it only probably attracts, biotechnology people, at least, the way Google search would work. But I think it would benefit all kind of innovators. But sir, second question, I think, which is building on Commander Gaurav Sharma's question here. So Commander Gaurav Sharma is working, on behalf of Navy. He's based in IIT Delhi, and his day job is collaboration, to get the Navy innovations from the top institutes in India. So he's asking, a very simple question here, that you talked about interdisciplinary and talk about collaboration. So he's asking, is there a official way to collaborate? And is there a database to find expertise? So what is your observation here, sir?
See, as I mentioned, we cannot say you collaborate with X, Y, or Z. That's not, as a government agency, we cannot tell them. We can just advise them that, okay, fine, your project has such and such requirement, and you can look for people or a collaborator with this kind of a background. But we can't direct them specifically, okay, you meet Mr. Sachin and he's the right person for this job. No, sorry, because being, you can understand, we can't really do it that way. But we do tell them that, okay, fine, it would be useful to have a person with such and such kind of a background, or it would be good to collaborate with an institution or an industry with such kind of background, or these are the 5 companies or 7 companies who are already working in this area. Such kind of information can be provided, but we can't really pinpoint and say, okay, this is the company with whom you should collaborate.
So when we are attending top level conferences, let's say in Europe or elsewhere, most of the conferences today, they have a B2B tool, so you could register yourself and you could seek meetings with experts, like the way Dr. Mukherjee mentioned about your Open Darbar. I'm just thinking aloud here that could BIRAC website allow people to register with their expertise so that other people can find them, so that way maybe it could be an open resource where you're not recommending those people. You can give even a disclaimer that we do not endorse these people, but this way the community itself can make themselves available. But sir, some quick questions, because we are running against time here. So some maybe questions where we can expect short answers. So one is a question where Mr. Mukul Bagga was asking that when BIRAC compares itself to other countries, so where do we stand? Maybe a quick answer on that, and what if there is any insight there.
Might like to comment, Dr.
So, if you see, thank you, Sanjay. And again, I will tell you if I missed something, you please add. So, BIRAC, if you see BIRAC's origin story, when it was created by the then visionaries of DBT, especially Professor M.K. Bhan, who was then the secretary of DBT, and then the first MD of BIRAC, present secretary of DBT, Dr. Edu Suru. It was a model which was based out on the model which came from BARDA. Initially the SIBRI scheme which Sanjay leads was a scheme similar to what BARDA used to run in US and in Canada. There was a scheme. So I think globally we tried, because DBT never was able to fund industries. Why BIRAC was created? Because to really enable the industrial innovation system to flourish in India. That was the strong idea of creating BIRAC. So BIRAC was created as an organization as an arm's length distance from DBT to really help innovations who can really spin off to a company or an industry. That was the idea. And it was based out of model which was being done earlier in US and Europe, and things. The team studied that. So we are one of the models which has been developed from there. Now, how it compares, I think this was the first organization in India which was, I am not talking about TDB right now. TDB was one of the organizations which was created much before us, but that mandate was only product commercialization. Our was to, enable innovation ecosystem from proof of concept or pre-proof of concept. Sanjay runs program which has pre-proof of concept, proof of concept. So our was to take innovation from absolutely a bench level or pre-bench level to the bedside or to the field. So the idea, and we are among the leading organizations globally, and we work very closely with international funding agencies. We have almost 30 plus collaborations. We work together and we are their arms in India. To name a few, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The Grand Challenges, which is globally run, it is managed through and managed by BIRAC in India. So that looks up innovations which really are challenge model innovations, which we take up. Wellcome Trust. We are their Indian arm and we run programs along with them, especially on the translational space. Then we work with globally Nesta. We work with WHO. We work with the Norwegian innovation agencies. We are closely working with NIH. We run their programs on vaccines in India. We work with Grand Challenges Canada. in India. So there are almost around 20 plus collaborations, which we are their Indian arms. Because I give an example, innovation model works around, which we call farming of innovation and then hunting of innovation. So what BIRAC does, what Sanjay described, the big scheme which is run is farms innovation. And then the following scheme with BIPP, SIBRI and other things really hunts innovations to take it to the next level. So this model is one of the unique. Globally, and we are really work with all international agencies in India, and we are their arms, and we work with that. Sanjay, anything I have missed?
No, I would just like to mention the majority of these international programs are managed by Dr. Mukherjee. He's the one who is really heading them. So he's the right person if you want to get the more information.
So allow me to take few quick questions, because I think one is that somebody asked that the presentation of yours, could that be shared with us so that we can distribute it?
I'll do that.
Then second, sir, someone is asking that for somebody to get a BIG or SIBRI fund, if they are a startup which has already raised a seed fund from a VC, are they eligible?
Yeah, no such restrictions.
Yeah, very good, sir.
It is not necessary that they would be submitting a proposal in the same area of research. I mean, it could be a slightly different problem. I mean, if it's the same problem, then we have to see that like you are already getting funds for a particular research activity from somewhere, then it's a different thing. But if you want to get into something different from what you are already doing or related to that, we have no such restrictions. No, not at all. They are welcome to apply.
So I think that there are probably a lot of questions, but I think there is a paucity of time and we want to respect your time as well. So maybe I would like to invite Dr. K Singh, because we could not hear him because in the beginning he had some internet issues. So Dr. Singh, if you could join us and maybe give us some concluding observations.
Thank you very much. Firstly, but both stalwart speakers, my thanks. And at least when I say that, I've learned something new and organized better. And I'm sure all panelists would have been also so. I just wanted to also offer that we have a network of 95,000 people. And every month we send a pulse through which this recording, what we are doing today, we will also send it through links so that people, those who administrate, can know what good work you people are doing it. Secondly, we also have a magazine which is alternate month. Maybe by end of the year, we will have this magazine every month. In fact, Dr. Mukherjee knows about it, and he has been regularly reading it. We stopped printing, but when things improve, this kind of a club meeting may be alternate month or once in 3 months we have physical, balance we have virtual, depend on the condition. And same is for the magazine. We have created a section very recently. This is rather first time we have created in that. And that's the opportunity where people who are startup doing some good work, they may write success and failure study or case study of theirs. What problem they had and how they had and what in their success. So it will go to 95,000 people and it will be good. For that, I will seek, we will send you the brochure, we will send you, if it can be circulated, we'll be too happy to accept these one-pager and not more than that, page and a half. Because I remember Dr. Mukherjee says, if you want lakhs of rupees, just write 2 pages. Don't write thesis. So I suppose 1 to 2 page can be given. This will help the other people who are reading about it and who can be benefited. So this will go through Pulse every month, magazine alternate months today, and maybe monthly after a couple of months. So this is what they have been very good awareness and we will fall back to you and seek your advice so that we can do it for the community's sake and people are more aware that, as I said, I am benefited. At least I never knew many of such things. Then I'm sure many of people in the ecosystem will also not know. Thank you very much from my side. Grateful to you for your time.
Thank you, Rexa. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Sachin. And thank you all the listeners today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And we are grateful to you for all these, experiences that you have shared. Maybe it may be also a good idea in future that we also invite you, maybe along with some of the beneficiaries of your,
Sure.
schemes, because learning also from successful innovators could be very, let's say, useful to innovators who have not yet started or who are early in their journey. So with that, sir, thanks once again, and we look forward for your future cooperation as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity. Thanks a lot. It was indeed a pleasure interacting with you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Sachin. Thank you, Sanjay. Bye.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.